Hello, today we are going to be talking about multiplication. So what is multiplication? Multiplication can be thought up as repeated addition. So a number added to itself a number of times. Now before we get into a few examples, I wanted to go over a few basic rules and how you will most commonly see multiplication written. So if we look to the left, we see that 8 times 6 is denoted by 8 with an x between the 8 and the 6. And so 8 times 6 is equal to, and the second way you'll see it written is 8 times 6 with a dot in between the two. These two are equal, however, you might see it written 8 times 6 with an x or 8 times 6 with a dot in between. The last way you'll see it typically written, in which these are all equal, is 8 times 6 but with parentheses. So sometimes you'll see the 8 and the 6 with the parenthesis. Sometimes you'll see it just one number or the other. It doesn't matter. They are all the exact same thing and they are all equal. So again, sometimes you'll see it with an X, sometimes you'll see it with a dot, and sometimes you'll see it with parentheses. It doesn't matter. They are saying the exact same thing. The last thing I wanted to show you guys, and we won't get into it in this video, but if you have a variable, so if you have 8 times it by x, this x is not the actual multiplication sign. However, 8 is being multiplied by x, and there's nothing in the middle here. However, if you say that x is equal to 6, for example, then you would probably rewrite it as 8 times 6, or 8 times 6, or 8 times 6. All the same thing, but I just wanted to show you that you might see a variable with a number, and then you'll realize that it is also multiplication. All right, next I want to get into a few basic rules that will help you if ever you see it, and that is any number multiplied by 0 is going to yield 0. So 2 times 0 will give you 0. 7 times 0 is going to give you 0. Any number multiplied by 0 will give you 0. The next rule I wanted to look at is any number multiplied by 1 is going to give you that number. So you can have 3 times 1, that's going to give you 3. You can have 7 times 1, that's going to give you 7. Any number multiplied by 1 will give you that number. So now that we understand the basic rules, I wanted to go into sign rules. These sign rules are very, very important and will change the value of your answer. So you have to pay very close attention to these signs. So if you have a positive number, which I just have here as a positive, you'll typically just see it as 1, but I just wanted to show and emphasize that this is a positive 1. But if you have a positive number multiplied by a positive number, the sign is going to be positive. In this case, using our rule, we have 1 multiplied by 1. Any number multiplied by 1 is going to give you that number. So we have 1 times 1 is 1. And then looking at the signs, a positive times a positive is going to yield a positive. Looking at the next example, we have a negative number multiplied by another negative number, and a negative times by a negative is going to yield a positive. So that's very, very important to know. If you have two negative numbers, negative 1 times negative 1, you are going to get a positive 1. Our last sign rule that's very, very important is a negative number multiplied by a positive number is going to yield a negative number. So a negative 1 in this case multiplied by a positive 1 is going to give you a negative 1. So again, very, very important that you look at the signs, because depending on what it's being multiplied by, you are going to get a different value as far as positive or negative. And in our example, I will show you exactly what that looks like. And the last thing I wanted to show you before we go into the examples is just a note on how you can write multiplication. So similar to the signs in which you can vary them up depending on your preference, you can also vary up the way you write a multiplication problem. So in this example, we have the 8 on the outside. 8 times 6, that is equal to 6 times 8 with 6 on the outside. So again, you can write it any way you want as long as it's multiplication. It doesn't matter the order because they're all being multiplied together. So again, in this case, it doesn't matter. So let's get into a few examples and I'll show you exactly why that is. All right, so looking at our first example, we're going to do 2 times 3. And so again, we ask ourselves, what is multiplication? Multiplication can be thought up as repeated addition, so a number added to itself a number of times. So in 2 times 3, we are adding 2 to itself 3 times, right? So what does that look like? That looks like 2 3 times plus 2 plus 2, right? Or if you want to see it visually, you can go 2, 2, and 2, right? And so what this equals is 6, because 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. And so 3 times 2, or 2 times 3, is 6. Now, looking at it the other way, which is 3 times 2, what are we saying? We're saying 3 added to itself 2 times. So 3 plus 3, and that equals 6. So we do see that both of these are equal, and that's why 2 times 3 is equal to 3 times 6. Or sorry, 3 times 2. It doesn't matter which way you write it, they are identical, and it's just looking at it a different way, right? So 3 2 times or 2 3 times gives you the exact same answer. Now, let's look at a value that has 2 digits. So let's say 27, for example, and we're going to look at 27 times 3. So what I like to do when I have a problem like this is I like to rewrite it in this fashion of 27 times 3. And the reason why I like to do it this way is because I get to see exactly what's happening through the problem. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the number to the far right, and then from the far right, you're going to go right to left. And so if you have a larger number like 3 divided or multiplied by 2, 2, you're going to start with this number, and then after you've completed this number, then you're going to go to the left, and you're going to complete that number. But we're not doing that problem right now, so let's just stay at 27 times 3. So at 27 times 3, we're going to take this 3 and we're going to multiply it by this number, and then we're going to multiply it by this number, and then that's going to be our answer. So what do? We do 3 times 7, and so in the ones place, we're going to, the 3 times 7 is 21, so in the ones place, we're going to put the 1, and we're going to carry the tens place, so that's just like division and multiplication and addition. All of them are the same, right? From the ones place, you can only go up to 9, then you go into the tens place, and the tens place, you can only go up to 9, then you go into the hundreds place, so it's just like addition. So in this case, 3 times 7 is 21. We bring the 2 up to the top because it is in the tens place, and in the ones place, we are going to put a 1. Now that the 7's done with the 3, we're going to move to the 2, and so 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2, 8. So your answer is going to be 81. That's what it is. It's very simple. And again, we see that this is step 1 because we multiplied 3 times 7. And then once we're done with that, we go to step 2, which is the next number over. 3 times 2, 6 plus 2 is 8. And so that's your answer. So let's do another example. Let's see, so that's 81. The next example, let's look at 337 multiplied by 31. I don't know. And let's do a negative 31. So with this value, again, we're looking at a positive multiplied by a negative. So we know that our end value should be negative. So you want to remember that. However, when doing the actual problem itself, it doesn't change anything as far as the methodology on what needs to be done. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this number. We're going to multiply it by everything from right to left. And then when we're done with this number, that's number 1. And then when we're done with that number, we're going to look at this number, and then we're going to do the exact same thing, everything from right to left, and that's number 2. So let's do that. So looking at the first number, which is 1, we're going to do exactly what we said we're going to do, and we're going to use the rule. Any number times it by 1 is that number. So 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. Any number multiplied by itself is that number. So 3, 3, 3, 7. That is the first value in our problem. And so then what we do is we cross off because we're done with the 1. And so now we need to put a placement holder for that 1. Now we move to the 3. And then we do the exact same thing. 3 times 7 is what? It's 21. So we put the 1 down here, carry the 2. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11. So we put the 1 down here, carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. We put the 0 down here and carry the 1. And the last thing we have is 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 1 is 10. So now what we do is we add these numbers together, and we get 7, 4, 4, 3, 0, 1. Now you might think you're done, but you have to remember that we did a positive times it by a negative. And so therefore we have to remember to bring down the negative from our rule, that a positive multiplied by a negative is going to give us a negative number. So this is your answer, negative 103,447. All right, looking at our final problem example, we are going to do a negative 7.2 times it by a negative 13.6. And so this problem looks really complicated. We are working with negatives, we're working with decimals, but you'll see here in a second that it's very, very simple. Again, what I like to start by doing is by bringing the number that has the most number of digits to the top, and then bringing the number with the least amount of digits to the bottom. Okay, and again, this way we can see exactly what we're doing. We're going to start with the right number here on the bottom, and then we're going to complete that number, and then we're going to move to the left, and then we're going to work with that number, the 7. We're going to complete that number, and then our answer should be finished. Now, looking at this problem, we do have 2 negatives, and so we know that from our rule that a negative times a negative is going to yield a positive. So that's one thing that we need to remember to think about towards the end of our problem. But what we're going to do is we're going to drop the negatives right now because they don't change the numbers themselves, they just change the signs. So we're not going to worry about them now. Similarly, we see that we have decimal places here. What we're going to do is we're going to forget about the decimal places right now, and then at the end, similar to the sign, we'll add in the decimal places where they need to go. But what we're going to do is start with the 2, and we're going to work our way through from right to left. We're going to complete the 2, then we're going to go to the 7 and complete our way from right to left. So looking at this problem, 2 times 6 is 12, so we put the 2 down here in the 1 spot, and we bring up the 1 for the tens. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and then 2 times 1 is 2. So now what we're going to do, cross out the 2, bring that placement holder down, and now we work our way to the 7. 7 times 6 is 42. Bring the 2 down there, bring the 4 up to the top. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. Put the 5 down there, carry the 2. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. So what we can do is we now add them because we have completed all the numbers. So now we just add and we get 2, 9, 7, 9. So now we have to remember that we took out the decimal place or the decimals and we took out the negative sign. So again, looking at our rule over here, a negative multiplied by a negative is going to give us a positive answer. So we know that this is a positive answer, and that's the first step. Now, thinking about decimal places, a really easy rule to remember is the number of decimal places you have in your question will be the number of decimal places you have in your solution. So we have 2 decimal places in the question, and so therefore we know that our answer or solution is going to have 2 decimal places. So 1, 2, and therefore 1, 2. So we know that the correct answer is 97, a positive 97.92. And there you have your answer. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, please comment below and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.